Welcome to the Start by Starting Coaching Podcast. I'm Susan Peters-Chesley, your host, a Level 1 autistic adult and the founder of Living Empowered Today, where I help Level 1 ASD adults navigate the journey to self-acceptance and empowered living. If you're tuning in today for the first time, thank you for joining me. If you're returning, a hearty welcome back. This podcast is designed for adults who, like myself, received a late-in-life autism diagnosis and are learning how to make sense of it all by exploring the art of moving forward one step at a time. In today's episode, it'll be Autism and Relationships, Building Connections After 40. Now, it is November 24th, 2024. And so today we're preparing for the holiday season. And this can be the most nerve-wracking time for anybody, but especially for us on the spectrum. So I kind of wanted to put this before some of the other meat that we got into, because we need a little help and support during this time, especially, honestly, after the 2024 elections. We need some community right now to help us deal with all the things that are coming over the next 3 months. So in today's episode, we're diving into a topic that's both deeply personal and universally relatable: autism and relationships, building connections after 40. So whether it's friendships, family, or romantic relationships, navigating relationships as an autistic adult can feel like learning a foreign language. But here's the good news. Building meaningful connections is absolutely possible, no matter your age or starting point. Now, if you've searched all over the internet and bounced around at different autistic sites, you'll see a pretty grim attitude of relationship connections. And not a lot of people give positive thoughts on that. So that's what I'm here for today, to face the challenges with a positive mindset, and we can release the doom and gloom about our diagnosis. So segment 1 today, the challenges of connection after 40. So let's talk about these challenges. Building and maintaining relationships as an autistic adult comes with unique hurdles, especially when you spent years and years of masking or feeling misunderstood by others and yourself. So by the time we reach our 40s, many of us have accumulated tons of emotional baggage, disappointments, broken connections, and maybe even the belief that relationships are just too hard. So add to that energy the drain of navigating neurotypical social norms. And it's no wonder we feel connecting becomes overwhelming. So let me tell you something. Your 40s can be a time of great transformation, a time to shed the social scripts that don't work for you anymore and rebuild your own connections on your own terms. I, at 40, allowed myself to do this, and I started building boundaries for myself. They didn't work out very well, because when you first start setting boundaries for yourself with other people who have been used to who you are for 40 years, change is not something that they want to see happen. A lot of people think that, you're supposed to be the same person forever. Well, that's not how life works. Every 10 years, you actually go through a change of identity. And the 40s is one of the most difficult after your 30s. But it could be the most rewarding, because then you start speaking up for yourself, standing on your own 2 feet, and setting boundaries with people. And again, I said they don't like it because you're bucking the norm. You're throwing out the social scripts that they expect you to have. But keep on going. You're going to mess up, but just keep listening, and we'll go over how to set boundaries later on in the series. But this first section is just setting your mindset to be open to the rest of the work that we're going to be doing. So segment 2, the foundation of connection, understanding yourself. So here's where you start. Understanding yourself. Before you can build meaningful relationships, you need to know who you are. That means exploring your needs, boundaries, here we are again, and your communication style. So ask yourself, what energizes me in relationships? What drains me? And what are my non-negotiables? Things that you just will not tolerate anymore. So one of the biggest gifts of receiving an autism diagnosis that I found later in life is finally having a framework to understand your lived experiences. You're not too sensitive or too distant, all these things that you've been called and labeled. You're just wired differently, and that's okay. So when you approach relationships from a place of self-acceptance, you actually open the door for an authentic connection. If you've had an authentic connection, you know how comfortable it is. Like you've met someone that you've always known, and the relationship or the topics or the conversation just flows. That's because you've come to a place of self-acceptance, and it's comfortable for you to talk about these things with someone else that you can relate to. So that's what's really important. Open yourselves up to people that you relate to. Not everyone deserves your story. Just keep that in mind. You don't need to tell everyone your life story. You know, just share it with those that you have an authentic connection with. So segment 3, here's some tips for building relationships after 40. Now, let's get into some practical strategies for building these relationships. You want to start small. Whether it's reconnecting with an old friend or joining an interest-based group like what we have here, start with low-pressure interactions. Small steps can lead to big connections. That's what I'm doing here with the first 2 episodes. We're starting with low-pressure interactions, a small step, so we can move on to the bigger meat of the situation. Be honest about your needs. It's okay to say, I prefer one-on-one conversations, or I need a little bit more time to process what you're saying. Authenticity in relationships builds trust. And if you don't have trust, a relationship will not flourish or develop. You must trust the person first, like I just said up in section 1. The next step is to learn to set your boundaries healthfully. Relationships thrive when you feel safe. So don't be afraid to set your limits, whether it's protecting your downtime or declining social invitations that feel overwhelming. And this takes time to learn to do. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get this perfect. Declining social invitations will feel kind of weird at first, especially like I said, Thanksgiving is coming up, Christmas coming up, and New Year's. And we just had a very volatile election season. Whichever side of the aisle that you're on, this Thanksgiving might be difficult to handle. Christmas too. If you decided to not associate with people who chosen a side, that's up to you. It depends on how harmed you feel by these people who may not have chosen for your best interest. So this is going to be a very challenging year for everyone. Just try not to blow up, melt down, and disturb your own peace. You can always decline these social invitations, even if it's to your parents' home or to your children's or any other family or friends. No matter your reason, you have that right to decline that social invitation, and you don't have to give an excuse. You don't have to say anything. You just, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I've got other plans. And leave it at that. So the next step is you want to practice active listening. So connection isn't just about being understood. It's also about understanding others. Practice listening with curiosity and empathy when other people are talking. You want to give them the same respect of being present as you want them giving you that same respect. So if you have to practice in the mirror, practice making videos on your phone or your computer and just privately to see how you sound and what your facial expressions look like, because we are going to be some of the most animated facial expression people I know I am. All of my thoughts and feelings are on my face, and I'm still practicing that. And no, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm way better at it than I used to be. So give it some time and just practice listening to others. Now, embrace neurodiverse relationships is your next step. So now that you know where you fit, you might want to seek out other neurodivergent individuals who share your values and your communication style. So you might find it easier to connect with people who get it. I know I do. Now, my communication style is I can get so excited when I'm with people who share my values. And we may have different communication styles, but they're very close. And I have a friend who we only speak maybe 3 times a year, but we have conversations and it's like 3 and 4 hours. And we're both neurodivergent, so we both are respectful of each other's speaking. We pause, we listen, we don't interrupt. We both happen to be professionals in the same field, so we're a little bit more aware of that. But, give it some time and you'll find that you'll be able to have great conversations with other neurodivergent people too. So segment 4, stories from the spectrum. I'm going to share a little story about me and having fostered a relationship. But first, I want you to think of a story about a relationship you have fostered. Now, again, I said I too have had difficulties fostering relationships. I have always, and I don't like to use always unless it's true, always have had difficulties connecting to other people. I was taught from an early age to mask, and to fit in. And unfortunately, to fawn, which is looking for outside validation. I don't fawn anymore, but I'm still working on masking. So I had a time where I broke up a toxic friendship that was 12 years. and it's been a blessing. That was 2 years ago. And so here I was, stuck alone in the jungle, 64-year-old woman who don't, I need transportation because sometimes it's difficult for me to do it myself. So I had to seek out another person who could do those things for me. That was very difficult for me to reach out and ask someone else for help. But I did happen to find a young woman who, over the last 2 years, we started out by these steps that I explained to you here. It was a business proposition at first, and I kept it really serious. I paid her, and we went here and there. Over the last 2 years, it has developed slowly into an acquaintance friendship because I've learned to trust her, and she's learned to trust me. So think of a story that reminds you about a connection that isn't about perfection. This wasn't a perfect relationship that I just developed. I still have learned to set my boundaries and ask for what my needs are. And she has respected that. And I respect her needs in her time. So it's about persistence with yourself and with others, giving people space to be human and giving yourself space to be human. So even if you've faced rejection or misunderstandings in the past, because these will happen, every interaction is an opportunity to grow. Segment 5, reflect on taking action. So before we wrap up today, let's pause for a little reflection. I want to challenge you today to think about one action you can take this week to build or nurture a healthy connection. I'm going to repeat that again. I want you to challenge yourself to think about one action, just one, you can take this week to build or nurture a healthy connection. So maybe it's sending a text to someone you care about or haven't spoken to in a while and you want to reconnect. Joining a new community, which can be really scary to do for us. Or simply journaling about the kind of relationships you want in your life. And be honest in your journals. No one else is going to see it. Be honest about what you want, your needs, and what you can do to foster these healthy relationships. So remember, connection starts with intention. And also remember about intentions. We also often come to the table with good intentions. Most of us do. But also think about the impact of those intentions. Make sure that your intentions align with the other person's values as well. Because if you don't know this person and you've got these good intentions, the impact could be negative. It could be harmful for them, such as people of color or Black people. Be sensitive about the culture and that their lived experience, not just bringing what you think is going to be helpful. Be aware of cultural differences and the atmosphere of what's going on today at any point in time. So thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Start by Starting. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, hit that like button, and the notification button, of course. Leave a review or a comment below and share this podcast with someone else who might need it. You can also find me on the links below in the description and in the below of the transcript for resources and coaching programs to help level 1 autistic adults thrive. I'm just developing those, so please have patience with me. getting all these pages together. It can be a lot for us, and I'm really working hard to do this and be consistent. So until next time, keep starting where you are and building the life you deserve. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.